So here we are finally here for the start of the Red Bull Ring Speed Devils qualifying. We have only just hopped in. Sorry for the server issues, we had a couple of issues with people not being able to join, but we've finally got it up and running as Antonio just runs slightly wide. They are on their out lap currently, so Corrado will be allowed to have the space at the front of the entire pack. Everyone's slowly piling out of the pit lane as they come on to their start of their qualifying laps. This week we are at Red Bull Ring, which is a very different circuit, lots of quite long sweeping corners as Corrado begins his flying lap. So, last race we was round at Monza, and we had quite a battle there over the entire race, but it ended up being that Demiro ended up taking the win there. Actually, I think he led for most of the race. Corrado, who we're spectating now, unfortunately had a bit of a drop off, got caught up in a couple of collisions on that first lap with sustaining some damage, and ended up being knocked right towards the back. Actually ended up in P2 actually after all the penalties and everything was taken into place, and he also gained a point for pole and for best lap, so he ended up just behind Waldemiro. Just very close between the top bunch as Corrado comes towards the end of his flying laps. They have been doing around 128, I think it was, I'm not sure, in practice. As he comes across the line, let's see what he does. A 129.2. He is qualifying on the softs, however, not opting for the super soft tyres as he runs wide through turn 1. That's gonna... a lot of them are running wide through that turn 1. That's gonna not enable them to complete their next lap. They'll probably go back to pits and go out for another out lap. So it looks like Fabio Diana is currently sitting provisional pole as he has a lock up through that tight second turn. A lot of overtaking manoeuvres going to be done through that turn with that heavy braking zone. Eduardo sitting comfortably in second, got a 10th to Corrado in P3. So there's quite a lot of time to catch up for P1, who is also opting for the softs. Very different to see quite a few people on the softs, people like Fabio, Corrado, Roberto, Alessio and Antonio, and Daniele, who make up the top 10, all running on the softs, rather than opting for the grippier super soft tyres. As Fabio's still coming towards the end of his lap, we'll see whether he goes any faster as he comes down the back straight. Slightly improving with a 28.5. Eduardo heading back to pits, not being able to finish his flying lap. Tony's still sitting P11, not being able to gain much time as he spun out through turn 1. That's the end of his flying lap there, with 50 minutes left to go on the session. So we watch Antonio Termioli as three of them come across the line. We'll see whether any of them improve. Looks like Roberto was able to improve heading up to P2 with a 128.9. Looks like that turn 1 is causing a lot of trouble for drivers there, just having problems getting the curb right and the exit curb can be very bumpy, making the rear end very loose. Looks like one of the drivers is off down that straight. Unfortunately not being able to navigate the first turn right and getting away out of the way of the faster drivers. Very good sportsmanlike of them. Fabio coming through that top turn. Quite a few lockups here as well. Very heavy braking zones here. Round Red Bull, a lot of fast straight down into some heavy braking zones. Tony using all of the track he can possibly can to have as much time gain as he can. As much time he can gain through the corners. Daniele unfortunately had to retire from the last race, was unable to finish it, hopefully looking for a better result this week. It looks like Corrado has gone faster for a P2 with a 1:28.7. Eduardo still sitting in that P4 with a 1:29.1. Lorenzo unable to improve, still sitting in provisional P6. Alessio is coming across the back final straight. It's a 1:29.5 debris. I think he was out for a lap actually for that lap, so he won't be able to improve. Corrado going nice and smooth through that top turn. Aldemiro unable to improve. Last race's winner sitting quite low down in the order this week in P9. Fabio is looking to head out for another lap, followed by Tony Pistilli there in P14 currently with a 1:30 flat. Only less than a tenth separating P13 and P14 there, looks very close. Looks like they've actually drawn on time for P9 and P10 with a 1:29.692. See whether Emmanuel can improve. He isn't able to do it this lap. And it looks like there's 8/10 separating P9 and P8, so very close between those three drivers. It'll be very interesting to see how their race ends up. Roberto having a bit of a lock-up. Looks like a lot more drivers are heading out towards the super softs now, as we head towards the 10-minute mark left of the qualifying session. Emmanuel spin out on his out lap. Aldemiro not being able to improve, still sitting at a 1:29.6. Umberto coming to finish his lap is a couple of tenths down, so he won't be able to improve on this lap. Oh, actually, it looks like he does improve, sorry. He goes faster with a 1:31.1. Fabio is on his out lap. Giuliano, he had some great battles last week as he comes to that heavy braking zone through that long hairpin. Keeping it nice and clean, looking for a couple of tenths to find. Nicola Mura, unfortunately, last race, after causing a couple of collisions, had gained a 15-second penalty towards the end of the race, which knocked him down a couple of places in the final results, I believe. Which may have costed his championship position and his fighting championship chances. As we can see whether he'll go faster this lap. Looks like, I think that's Alessio in front of him. No, it's not. I'll take that back. Looks like they're both going to come through that final turn. See whether he improves. does improve with a 129.5, putting him into P10. Does also look like Wildemiro was able to go faster. He's now P6 with a 129.4. Danny Pichetta is in P9 with a 129.509. Just 7 thousandths behind P8. Very close between those two. Looks like Giuliano did have a bit of a lock up there. Seems to be a reoccurring theme with this track. A lot of large braking zones. Very easy to lock up in these cars. Eduardo coming through those final two bends. He comes down the final straight. We can see whether he improves. Not able to this lap. Looks like Fabio's sitting comfortably in P1 with a 128.3. That's 0.4 faster than Corrado in P2, as he's just on his out lap, coming with 8 minutes left of the session. He comes through the final bend, looking to improve using all the exit on that final corner. Comes down the pit straight, going to look for a good run into turn 1. Using all the entry curb, nailing the inside apex perfectly in the exit curb. With Eduardo coming through the really long hairpin. Tony Pistali sitting in P13 with a 130 flat still. A lot more drivers heading for the super soft tyres now. Only a couple running the softs on track. Turning nice and clean through the couple final corners. Looks like someone has spun off in the background there, got a couple of wheels too much on the curb. And it does look like Tony is able to improve with 129.6, pumping him up into P12. Just 0.4 off of P11. Very close grid qualifying times here. Not even a tenth separating P7 and P8-10, sorry. Very close qualifying time. Should make for some really good racing in the race. Giuliano sitting in that P10 has a 0.05 gap to P11. As he comes through the final two corners, runs slightly wide. Fabio dipping a wheel on the grass. He's going to call that lap off. Going to head back to pits, get some new tyres, and go out for a couple more laps. Looks like, I think that was Marco Novarino, who ran slightly wide for that turn 2. Very hard corner to get right. Eduardo looks like he's caught in a bit of traffic. He's going to look for a way past. Going to look for a move up the inside. Nice and clean. Not losing too much time. Does dip a wheel slightly on the exit through that left-right section. Looks like he has run slightly wide, has gone straight on through that double right-hander through the final two turns. He's going to cool, go back to pits, get a fresh set of tyres and more fuel, and go out through a couple more laps. Corrado coming through the final corner onto the pit straight. Isn't able to improve. Comes through turn 1. That's clean. Danny running slightly wide through that turn 2 is going to slow in his run through the tight right-hander. Is going to come off to the edge of the track, let the other drivers past, and head back towards the pits. Ivan even as he comes across the line. Unable to improve, still sitting in P16 with a 130.3. With less than 5 minutes on the clock, your standing order is Fabio in P1, Ciriello and Edoardo Forcieri in P2 and 3, Roberto Acurso and Lorenzo in Ps 4 and 5, Alessio in P6, Waldemiro and Thierry take up 7th and 8th, and Daniela and Nicola round up your top 10. Looks like Nicola is still opting to run with these softs as well as Daniele. Looks like Thierry's going out on some mediums, might be getting some race practice down in the last moments of qualifying, getting ready for the race. Ivan coming round the final 2 corners does run slightly wide. We'll see whether Improved runs quite wide through the last turn as well. We'll see whether he's managed to improve. No, he's still sitting P16. Stefano, unable to improve as well, is sitting P19 with a 131.3. Nice aerial shot as Eduardo does run wide through that long left-hander. Roberto comes through the final turn. Roberto. Sorry. Isn't able to improve, so he's still sitting P14. Corrado coming through the final turn. He's on his out lap, so he's only going to be able to have one more flying lap. So he will have to make this a lap of his life. He's got to lose 5 tenths to take P1 from Fabio. Looks like a lot of the drivers will be coming on towards their final lap. Giuliano on his out lap. Johnny coming into that heavy braking right-hander. Fabio's, as he comes down towards the final 2 turns, gets it nice and clean through the first one, using all the exit. He's down, gets the apex perfectly on the second one, gets a nice run out. As he comes down the final straight, will he be able to improve? Yes, he improves by 0.003 of a second. As Corrado comes down towards the final 2 corners, he may even be able to get another lap in after this one if he doesn't improve. Looks like he's going slightly slower to get the run out of the corner. He's used all the exit he can. Comes down the pit straight, unable to improve on this lap. Holding the brakes down through turn 1. He's able to get it through nice and cleanly as he comes down with a long straight. That's the end of qualifying. I think most of the drivers on their lap will be able to finish on their lap. As Corrado comes nice and clean through that tight right-hander. As he's hard on the brakes for this right-hander. Gets a nice and clean, using the curb on the exit. Coming in nice and tight for the right-hander to set himself up for the left-hander, using all the curb on the entry. Comes in, he clips that second apex, uses all the exit, dabs the brakes, goes down a gear, comes down through the left-hander, tries to keep the second right-hander as shallow as he can, getting as much time as he can as he comes down towards the over the hill towards the final 2 turns. Gets it nice and clean through the final corner, nice and clean, using all the exit as it comes down to line. We'll see whether he can improve. Is able to improve, but not fast enough for P1. So your results for qualifying is Fabio in the lead and Corrado in P2, Eduardo and Roberto making up the second row of the grid, Lorenzo in P5, Tony Pistilli in P6, Alessio Constantino and Waldemiro make up row 4. Thierry and Pichi Daniela make up row 5. Nicola Mura and Giuliano in P11 and 12th. Antonio and Alessandro P13 and 14. Marco Novarino and Umberto are in P15 and 16. Ivan Gridillo and Marco P17 and 18. Sando and Stefano in P20 and 21. And I think that's your entire grid. So we look forward to the start of the race. We have a couple of minutes for them to grid up and get ready before we go green flag racing. So we are destined to start the round 2 of the Speed Devils.it Porsche 911 RSR League around Red Bull Ring. We have 20 seconds left on the countdown as the race lights are about to come on as we race around this 4.326 kilometer 9-turn circuit of the Red Bull Ring. 7 seconds, the lights come on. We have 5 red lights and they are out, as it looks like everyone gets a nice and clean start. Looks like Fabio enabling himself to gain a bit of a lead. Looks like there's 4 wide through turn 1. Bit of contact there between Thierry as they all come piling down towards turn 2. Looks like Thierry taking a bit of a defensive. No, Fabio is a bit in front and they're growing a 1 second gap to Corrado. Looks like Lorenzo is going for a move up. Roberto is able to make it done as he hops up into P3. Looks like there is a collision there with Tony. Runs slightly wide, trying to get out of the way. Knocks down a while, and looks like Giuliano has taken off a couple of people there. Big collision right in the back. I'm not sure who that was. I think it may have been Marco. I'm not sure. So we hop up, Tony making a move up the inside of Alessio. Nice and clean move as they all come piling down towards this long right-hander. Tony leading this small group of drivers. Waldemiro looking for a way past. Not being able to find anything. Fabio gaining a lead of 1.2 seconds to Corrado. He's sitting nice and comfortably in P2. Waldemiro in PA coming nice and smooth through the final 2 turns. Fabio has managed to gain a 1 second lead on Corrado. Looking to gain a bit more of a gap. Looks like Lorenzo is under pressure from Roberto as they come side by side down the back straight towards turn 2. Looks like Lorenzo will have the inside, but Roberto managing just to squeeze out a bit of a lead, preventing Lorenzo being side by side with him through that tight right-hander. Thierry just behind Daniele, not being able to make a move stick yet. Looks like Giuliano has spun out or has had contact that has been shunted down the order, down into P19, maybe even lower as a couple more cars are behind him. Roberto just 0.3 seconds behind Eduardo, looking for a way past. Managed to gain a bit of a lead off of Lorenzo. As Lorenzo still close enough where if one of them makes a mistake he can capitalise. Waldemiro in PA is behind Tony Pistilli, just 0.6 seconds behind. Looks like Roberto's caught up slightly. He's currently 0.2 seconds behind, as it looks like Lorenzo is going for a move on both of them. Isn't going to be able to make it stick as Eduardo is out in front. Roberto running a bit wide and has dropped down a bit and lost a place to Lorenzo, who's putting some pressure under Eduardo, who he looks towards the outside as Eduardo goes defensive. Lorenzo braking a lot later, being able, and there's a bit of contact there between Lorenzo and Eduardo, managing not to spin out there as there's a bit more contact between Roberto and Eduardo, shunting Eduardo 0.4 seconds behind Roberto, as Lorenzo currently becomes under fire from Roberto and Eduardo under fire of Alessio as they come through the right hander. Looks like Roberto's just alongside Lorenzo. It's a long way round on that outside. It's going to look for the cut back. Not being able to get it. Lorenzo driving very well there. They're 5 seconds down from P2. Lorenzo looking to try and defend off from Roberto. And it looks like Eduardo had a bit of a sideways action there through that right-hander and has dropped down towards P8, allowing them all to gain a position as we come back on the battle between Roberto and Lorenzo. As they come down the back straight, looks like Roberto may look for a move up the inside. Isn't close enough to get anything done, is going to stay behind and maybe look for a move down into turn 2. Tries to get the run out of turn. As he does, he comes up alongside Lorenzo. They come side by side down the straight. Looks like Lorenzo is going to have Roberto, sorry, is going to have more speed. Is up in front. Will stick with the inside line, playing it defensive, enabling him to get up in front of Lorenzo. In the meantime, Waldemiro getting a little sideways action. Eduardo runs slightly wide through that right-hander. Nicola Mura right behind him now. Just 0.1 second. Is going to look for a move down up the inside. It's later on the brakes. Does get it stopped, but Eduardo has got the cut back. They're alongside down into the right, and then long left-hander. And side by side, Nicola Mura will have the inside for the next 2 turns. And there's a bit of contact, just a bit of tap there on the inside door of Eduardo. Decides to sit in behind as they come under threat from Antonio, who's just behind. Going to put some pressure on Nicola Mura, just 0.1 seconds behind as they come down over the hill. Nicola Mura faked right and then went left for the optimal racing line. Antonio runs slightly wide, comes through the right-hander. Is still just 0.3 seconds behind Nicola Mura as they come down the back straight onto their 5th lap. Antonio not close enough to make a move, neither is Nicola as they round their right-hander. Antonio got slightly squirrely on the exit there, dropping off a couple of seconds, allowing Nicola Mura a bit of breathing space as he looks on the back of Eduardo. He looks for a move up the inside into turn 2. He's hard on the brakes, slightly later on the brakes, enabling to get it on the inside. Antonio nearly locking up into the back of Eduardo. Looks like Nicola is safely through Eduardo, as Eduardo is under threat from Antonio. Thierry Frey just behind them, putting some pressure on Daniele. As they come down through the right hand, a slight lock up from Eduardo, sorry. Antonio not being able to capitalise. Looks like Thierry is on the inside of Daniele. Daniele is going to have the inside for this left-hander and the corner after. Thierry sticking it out on the outside. They're still side by side. Thierry getting the move done, coming up in front of Daniele and making the move stick as he hunts his eyes down towards P10. Waldemiro managing to catch up to Alessio, who makes a slight mistake through that second to last turn. He's just 0.3 seconds now behind Alessio as they come down the back straight. Not going to be enough space. Looks like Alessio does go slightly defensive, which will allow Waldemiro to get a slightly better run out. Not being able to capitalise, allowing Tony to catch up onto the back of Waldemiro, just 0.4 seconds behind. Just 0.8 seconds separating P5 and P7. As they're too spaced out to make a move currently. Antonio looking for a move up the inside, does brake very late. Eduardo, sorry, I completely stumped on his name there. Not being able to make the cut back as Thierry Frey is behind them as well. Just 0.3 seconds behind. Moving down the order towards P20. Looks like they are side by side down into the turn. Stefano making the move. And unfortunately spins out there on that really tight turn. Really easy to lose the back end through that low speed corner. Unfortunately losing out on the place on Ivan. He's down and has lost 4 seconds to P19 as we come up back to Waldemiro. 0.2 seconds behind Alessio. Not being able to find a place to overtake yet. He's going to hopefully look for a way up the order. Not being able to find anything yet. Looks like Emmanuel, Marco and Daniele has bunched up. Emmanuel getting very sideways through that final corner, managing to save it from hitting the wall. Has lost a lot of time there though to P13. Thierry coming through the right-hander nice and clean. Has got the run on. Antonio does look towards the outside of the full turn 2. Not the ideal place for an overtake, but may be able to get it done on the run out of the corner. He is able just to stretch his legs out in front. Antonio will have the inside. However, Thierry gets the move nice and done. Clean. Gets past nice and cleanly. As Antonio has dropped off slightly. Looks like Eduardo is catching them slowly with Daniele behind him, just 0.4 seconds behind. As we come down through the right-hander. And it's Marco who has lost the rear end through there. Slowly drifted on track, managing to avoid collisions with everyone. It was a good 10 seconds, so he has time to spin it round. Did have a collision with a barrier, so he may have sustained some damage. We will have to see when he pits whether he decides to take that damage. Losing a place to Umberto as well, dropping all the way down to P16. While Demiro up into P6, not being able to find a way round quite yet as he comes through the final turn. Not quite being able to make the move stick anywhere yet. Tony just a second behind them, still in a fighting distance. Antonio looks like he's closing in on Thierry, just 0.6 seconds and 0.5 to Eduardo. Very close racing here in the opening laps as we are on lap 8. Your current order is sitting with Fabio up in P1. 2 seconds to Corrado, not being able to expand his gap over the last couple of laps, but certainly not closing either. Roberto in P3, 9.4 seconds off of Corrado. Lorenzo in P4, Waldemiro in P5, just 5 seconds there off Lorenzo in P4. Then you've got Alessio Antonio and Nicola Mura all in close proximity in P6, 7 and 8. Thierry just 2.1 seconds off Nicola Mura, with Antonio and Eduardo close behind. And Manuel 2.7 seconds off P12, slightly behind but certainly not too far away. Alessandro in P14, just 1 second off Emmanuel. Umberto 10 seconds off, quite a big gap between P14 and 15. Marco just behind him after his spin out through the corner just before the one which he just went round, as the gaps are slowly opening up. Alessio 0.5, and that's Lorenzo backwards there. Might have spun out through that final turn and has been shunted right down towards P12 currently, as it looks like Eduardo was looking for a move on Antonio. Antonio slightly locking up but not losing too much time. Eduardo dropping off 0.8 seconds. Daniele just behind him, 0.6 seconds, has got the better run, may look for a move up the inside. Marco Novarino slightly late on the brakes, just avoiding contact, losing quite a bit of time there, but managing to gain it on the exit as Umberto was slightly sideways on the curb, as he may look for a move up the inside. As he goes for a move, not close enough, he is just close enough. However, Umberto will have the run out, keeping the position. Tony Pastilli 0.7 seconds off P7. Nicola Mura not being able to gain much time here, although Alessio is just 0.1 seconds off in front, not too far. Tony and Nicola fighting for that P6 position. Fabio is able to extend his gap by 0.3 seconds. Did lap 0.5 seconds, 0.6 seconds faster that lap than Corrado. As we have P19 closing in on Sando, just 0.3 seconds behind, as he looks for a way past. Unfortunately got involved in some turn 2 collisions, which punted him right down the order as he climbs his way back up. They're side by side up the hill as they come round through the final turn, making the move stick, and is cleanly through as he sets his sights down for Ivan 6 seconds up the road. Nicola Navarine, Marco in P16, not being able to find a way past just yet. However, he is closing the gap with the slipstream down into turn 2 as a side by side. Sorry, there. He's just trailing behind it as he looks to go side by side there, side by side down. Marco, a lot layer on the brakes, does run slightly wide. Umberto looking for the run out, not being able to get. Marco getting the better run out, enabling him to gain the place into P15. Lorenzo down in P14 after a spin, looking for a way around Alessandro. Just 0.7 seconds off. Tony Pistali 0.7 seconds off still from Alessio, not being able to gain much time on Alessio. These 0.7 seconds through the final turn as they come onto their 11th lap, sorry. And it does look like Atari Finn was able to get past Sando, who may have had a slight spin out. Nicola Mira sitting in P7. Currently opted for the medium tyre, one of the highest running on the medium tyre. You've got Alessio also on the medium tyre in P5, looking for a slightly longer stint on these mediums. May pit slightly later. It'll be interesting to see how their pit strategies come into play. Nicola catching to Tony. Tony losing a bit of time to Alessio through that first sector. Now 1.3 seconds behind. Nicola 0.5 seconds through the braking zone. Gets that inside apex pretty nicely, not being able to gain much time on Tony. Thierry just behind them as well, 0.6 seconds behind. Tony sitting very comfortably with a 1:31.1 last lap. Alessio looking to close the gap on Waldemiro, just 2.3 seconds. He is on the medium tyre as well, the slightly harder compound, so we'll be losing slightly more time per lap than on the softer tyres, but it's certainly not losing a great deal of time as Tony has managed to catch back up to Alessio, just 0.8 seconds behind now. Nicola Mira just behind him as well with 0.9. It was 0.2 faster that lap than Tony, as the gaps are slightly expanding now, as each driver is slowly driving their race, getting their pit strategy sorted, as we're back on board with Tony Pistali. Nicola Mira closing the gap through that braking zone. Tony's slight lock-up isn't going to do well for the tyres. Nicola Mira has been enabled to catch up, just 0.2 seconds behind. May look for a move down into this right-hander. Not close enough, decides to sit behind. Goes for a slightly later apex. Has to check up slightly due to Tony being slightly slower through the turn, so is unable to gain much time. And it looks like Eduardo has had a spin out there. Has been punted back down to P12. I think he was down up into P9 or P10. Has been unfortunately dropped back down again, which is very unfortunate for him. As we have Antonio closing the gap to Daniele, just 0.3 seconds separating them as they crest over the hill to come on to the final two turns. Antonio not being able to make much of a move here, as they slightly later on the brakes, does lock up, does prevent his run out, which may allow Emmanuel to catch up. He does, he comes up alongside down the pit straight, as he will have the inside full turn 1, as they are side by side, and he gets the move done cleanly. Antonio running slightly wide, Emmanuel up into the top 10. Nicola Mira is alongside Tony round the outside, is going to have the run out, manages to get the moves done. Tony into P7 now, may even come under fire from Thierry, just 0.6 seconds behind in P8. Tony will look for another move down onto Nicola, sorry, as he's just 0.5 seconds behind. Will look for a move. They have caught up to Alessio, who's just 0.3 seconds down the road. Waldemir 12 seconds up from Alessio. Roberto running quite wide there down that little straight between the penultimate and final corner. He's really pushing the car to try and get as quick a lap time as he can. He did do a 1:29.9 last lap. And it goes even faster with a 1:29.8. That's 5/10 faster than Corrado is currently lapping. And he is lapping faster than the leader as well, so he is catching quite quickly. Waldemir with 1:38. Looks like someone did pit in there, not sure who that was. But they have come for a slightly earlier pit stop. Tony 0.2 seconds behind Nicola Mira. Unable to make a move. As they come down this back straight, very long straight here. Not being able to gain much time. As it looks like Thierry has closed up a lot. Gets slightly sideways on the exit. Not too bad. However, it's still 0.4 seconds. Managed to gain a lot of time during that braking zone. Just 0.3 seconds. May look for a move up the inside. Brakes quite late. Just missing a collision there on the back of Tony in that. I think it's a Haribo car. I'm not sure. It has Haribo on the front, so Roberto's quite nicely in P3. He's driving his own race, trying to let the softs keep us for as long as... Sorry, let me try that again. Keep as good condition as he can for as long as he can. Nicola Mira just 0.8 seconds. Looks like Thierry did have a slight mistake, which has cost him. Looks like Tony has dropped down the order to P10. May have run slightly wide through that left-right section, really fast section. May have run slightly wide on the right hand, on the inside of the right hander, and dipped the wheel on the grass, knocked him down into P10. Looks like Thierry has come into the pits. We'll see what tyres he comes on to. He's one of the early pit stoppers, just on lap 15. Antonio going up the inside of Tony. Of Eduardo, sorry. Eduardo looking for a move back on the outside. Around the outside. Alessio, Antonio braking a lot later. Eduardo going to be able to make the run out of the corner. Antonio running wide. Midway through the corner, able to get past. And it looks like Thierry has gone onto the softs again. So he's maybe running a soft, medium stint, or maybe running triple softs. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Ilaria coming onto the back of Marco. Just 0.8 seconds behind. Nicola Mira, 0.5 seconds off Alessio now. Is slowly catching him. Was actually 6/10 faster last lap. As he comes through the final turn. That's the penultimate and final turn, sorry. Just 0.5 seconds off. Not being able to make anything stick as of yet. Is catching him, however. And it looks like Emmanuel has pitted. We'll see whether he goes on to the softs again like Thierry did, or whether he'll go on to the mediums. We will have to wait and see. As Waldemir is gaining quite a big gap to Alessio, now up to 13 seconds. As Nicola Mira just 0.5 seconds behind Alessio. Not being able to make a move into this right-hander. Antonio 0.7 seconds off Eduardo after his move up the inside a couple of laps back. Look like Emmanuel is out on the softs, so he is also going for a soft stint like Thierry did. As we're back with Nicola Mira, just 0.4 seconds off Alessio. Antonio just 0.6 off of Eduardo. As we come up back to the battle between Alessio and Nicola Mira. Nicola, also running in the Ferrari 599 league, has been doing very well in that league as well, and has decided to enter in this Porsche league as well, as he's just 0.3 seconds now off Alessio. Managed to gain 3/10 on that last lap alone. Alessio's tyres may be going off slightly now, as Nicola Mira is lapping considerably faster. As they come on down, he's still 0.3 seconds behind. He may look for a move up the inside. Alessio going slightly defensive, however does opt for the more racing line as they come down through this back straight, just under their FISR sign. Official sponsors of the Speed Devils Porsche 911 RSR League here at Red Bull Ring. Alessio does go defensive, as Nicola Mira did look for a move. They both lock up. Nicola just sitting still behind, 0.3 seconds behind, as they come down through this long left-hander, using all the apex on the outside. Coming in for that late apex. They're coming down. Quick dab of the brakes through this left-right section. Then nice and fast, 0.3 seconds behind still for Alessio, as they come through the penultimate and final turns. Looks like Daniele is up to P7 as well, so he's driven quite a good race so far and is looking to hunt down Nicola and Alessio, sorry. Nicola Mira slightly slower that lap, 0.4 seconds behind now. Is later on the brakes through turn 1. It's just behind that rear diffuser on Alessio's car, 0.3 seconds as they come on down this straight. He's just 0.2 seconds off, right behind the rear bumper of Alessio. Looks for a move up the inside. Alessio going quite defensive. Nicola looking to move towards the outside, try and get the better run at the corner, which he does. Nicola right on the outside. Looks for a move up the inside. Alessio opting for the inside, for the defensive line, for this right-hander. Nicola around the outside. Unfortunately, Sando has retired from the race. He was running down the rear of the order as Nicola Mira is around the outside of Alessio. They are side by side down into this left-hander. Nicola Mira up the inside, slightly later on the brakes than Alessio, managing to make the move stick. Alessio, however, is not out of it, is looking for a move. It's just 0.2 seconds behind, sitting nicely behind as they come left through this left-right section. Alessio, 0.3 seconds now, lost slightly a bit of time, will look for a move back as soon as he can. As Nicola Mira, as they come through these last two turns. Nicola Mira is up into P5 now. It's a top 5 finish if he manages to stay there for another 21-22 laps. However, they are still very close together. Nicola Mira managing to make the move stick as they're coming down through turn 1. And it looks like Roberto has decided to pit and is currently back on track and has gone for the soft as well. Will he be able to come out in front of Eduardo? We will have to see. Yes, he is able to. However, Eduardo may look for a move up the inside through this right-hander. Doesn't look like he'll be close enough to make a move. Alessio, 0.6 seconds now, losing a bit of time to Nicola Mira, who is now up into P4 after Roberto pitted for that new set of softs. Looks like he may even go for a double soft stint as we're just under halfway through the race. Thierry Frey in P16, not being able to gain much time after his pit stop, is just behind Ivan, 0.5 seconds, not being able to make a move. And looks like Fabio and Corrado have decided to pit in on lap 18. We'll see whether they both head for the soft, or whether one of them will head for the softs, or whether one of them will head for the mediums, or whether both head for the mediums. Thierry in P16, looking for a move, looks for a move up the inside on Ivan, not being able to make it stick even as Antonio comes up behind Lorenzo, who's in P10. 0.5 seconds behind. Thierry managing to make the move stick round the outside of Ivan there, as he's up into P15 and is going to chase down Alessandro. Ivan just 0.3 seconds behind, however, will look for a move. Roberto right on the back of Tony, just 0.3 seconds behind, using all the exit, is going to have a slight run out of the corner. 0.2 seconds behind as they come down the straight. Is looking for a move around the outside, may try and have a look up the inside. 0.1 seconds behind. Nope, decides to stick for the outside. Tony going defensive, Roberto having to run very wide, preventing a collision between him and Tony. However, may have the run out 0.1 seconds behind as they come down through this straight for the right-hander. Is on the outside, however, for this turn. Tony comes across. Is going to have the inside and the ideal racing line. Roberto having to check up to make sure not to plough into the back of Tony. 0.4 seconds behind now as they're coming through this left-hander. As we're on board with Alessio, who have caught up to Nicola Mura. Nicola Mura has managed to catch up to Waldemiro. Waldemiro heading for the pits as we come back with Roberto. He gets the run out of that left-right hand corner. It's going to be on the outside, however, for this right-hander. Very hard to make a move up through this right-hander. Is on the outside, managing to make it stick. Doesn't run too wide either. Runs nicely, and Tony has decided to dive into the pits. Roberto now going to have a look for Daniele, who's up in P4. Looks like Corrado did end up in P5, who is just behind Daniele. Will be looking to get past as quick as he can so he can gain time back up on Fabio. Fabio is also stuck in traffic, however. Corrado towards the outside. I think that's Marco Novarino letting them past. It's one of the Marcos. We'll have a quick look. No, that was Marco Cavancy as we come back on with Corrado. As they are, Corrado not being able to make a move. It is 0.1 seconds behind, however. Does look for a move up the inside, makes it nice and clean. Takes the position, goes, thank you very much for that, and heads on his way to catch up with Fabio, 5 seconds behind. Fabio is caught up in traffic with Alessio, however, who is running the medium tyre, so may not pit as of yet. Fabio just behind him, 0.4 seconds behind. Alessio just 0.7 seconds behind him, as Nicola Mura is currently your leader coming on to lap 21. Alessio is coming under threat from Fabio, just 0.3 seconds behind. Fabio looking for a way past, going to try and get as fast as he can to lead, try and get as much of a gap he can to Corrado, who is sitting in P4. Fabio not being close enough to make a move. And it looks like Giuliano has pitted as well, who was sitting in P8. Fabio 0.2 seconds off behind Alessio. Alessio may go defensive through this right-hander, which he doesn't. He goes for the ideal racing line. Fabio looks for a move up the inside, not being able to make it stick, having a slight lock-up, however, is going to have the run and the inside line for the right-hander. Will be on the outside for this left-hander, however, and will be on the outside for the next left-hander. Does decide to sit behind and comes in just behind Alessio there. Not quite what he wanted through those turns, however has got the better run. Is sitting behind Alessio. Isn't going to go for a move down into this. Oh, he is going to go. No. Does decide to try and stick a nose in there. Does slightly tap him. Nicola Mura heading into the pits. Fabio does slightly tap the rear end of Fabio. Does, however, let him pass down the straight. Good sportsmanlike conduct there by Fabio. Not quite the way he wanted to get past, but has allowed Corrado to catch up. Fabio catching up back up to Alessio, who's currently in P1, just 0.5 seconds behind. Corrado slightly behind him, 2.2 seconds. Daniele 2 seconds behind him, and Roberto 2 seconds behind him. As Alessio gets a slight lock up as Fabio comes straight across the sausage curb on the inside of that tight right-hander may have caused him a bit of front damage. Doesn't look like it from this distance. However, that may affect the rest of his race. Not being able to close the gap up much, 0.4 seconds. Has managed, and it looks like Thierry is side by side with Nicola Mira, who is currently in P9. Manages to get past. He is in front of Nicola Mira. Nicola Mira, not being close enough to make a move up the inside, decides to sit behind. Not being able to get the run out either, so he won't be able to attack in the next corner as we come back on board with Fabio and Alessio, 0.3 seconds behind on through these double right-handers on the final 2 turns. Not quite close enough to make a move as of yet. May look for a run out of this final turn. Has slightly got it. It's just 0.2 seconds behind. The slipstream will pull him along. Corrado 1.3 seconds behind him as well. Fabio up the inside, down the final straight. Not being close enough to make a move. Decides to sit behind. Just 0.3 seconds behind him now. As we come towards the 24th lap, Fabio is alongside with Alessio as they come down through the left-hander just before turn 2. Will he be able to make the move? He's alongside. He's up the inside. Is able to make the move. However, will Alessio be able to get the run out? He is not. Corrado has managed to catch up very quickly to Alessio during that braking zone. Just 0.3 seconds behind Alessio now as they come on down through this straight. Corrado not being quite close enough. Does brake considerably later. Does run very wide through there. Dipping a couple of wheels on the gravel. Going to lose a lot of time there. Trying to look for a gap that's not there. Roberto up the inside of Daniele. Daniele will have the inside for this double left-hander. However, Roberto is round the outside, managing to stick it round. Looks like he has managed to creep up in front. Is going to close down on Corrado. Corrado 1.5 seconds off Alessio. Looks like Fabio has managed to gain a bit of a gap to Alessio, so he hasn't got to worry so much about Corrado as he will have a Alessio to deal with up in front of him. Roberto 0.4 seconds behind and Daniele 0.7 seconds behind. He hasn't pitted yet, so he may come in for a pit stop soon. Ilaria coming into the pits. No, it was Alessio, sorry, so Alessio will no longer be battling. Daniele is 0.8 seconds behind Roberto. Roberto slowly closing the gap to Corrado. 0.6 seconds now as they come on to this very long straight up into turn 2. Just 0.5 seconds. Daniele slightly slower through that turn 1. 1.2 seconds behind now as Roberto is slowly catching Corrado. Not being able to make anything stick as of yet. Just sitting slightly behind. Just 0.6 seconds now separating P2 and 3. Corrado not being close enough to make a move into that right-hander. This is closest battle currently on track. Ivan 0.8 seconds behind. Marco not being close enough to have really any attack as of yet, as Roberto still 0.5 seconds behind through the left-hander. Coming down into this fast left-right section again. Just being able to get a good run, may be able to catch up through these double left-handers. Emmanuel catching up to Alessio now, just 0.2 seconds. Is going to look for a move up the inside, not being able to find the space. However, it does look like he may have the run out of the corner. Alessio in P10. Manuel sitting slightly behind, not being able to get the move done. Roberto in P3, 0.2 seconds behind it. It's coming through turn 1. Not managing to find a gap yet as we come back down to Emmanuel and Alessio's battle for P10. Just 0.6 seconds behind now. As it's Daniele and Eduardo pits. Daniele gone for another set of mediums, so he's gone for the double medium stint. Valdemiro up into P5 now, as Eduardo has gone into the mediums as well. Looks like Roberto's still sitting 0.5 seconds behind Corrado, not being able to gain much time on him. However, will slowly hopefully crawl the gap back. He was 2/10 faster last lap, so we will hope that he will be able to gain and have a good battle between him and Corrado as we hop on board with Roberto. Not been able to make a move stick as of yet. He's just 0.2 seconds behind. You can see him really work the wheel. Really seems in control of the car, not having much counter rotation. As Corrado does go wide, does slightly come across on Roberto. Roberto comfortably getting past into P2. He takes that place nicely. Goes, thank you very much, I'll have that. As he's up into P2 now, just 0.3 seconds in front. Does get a slight slide on, however. Corrado may be able to gain a bit of time. Thierry having a bit of Umberto had a bit of a slide there. Up in the gravel, has been knocked down into P8. Manuel still 0.8 seconds behind as we come back on Corrado. It's closed up very close in that right hander. May look for a move up the inside through this right hander as they come on down the straight. Slipstream going to be in effect. Just 0.2 seconds behind now. Not close enough to be able to make a move as they head on down to the right hander. Corrado slightly faster through the mid corner there, however is unable to gain any time and actually loses 1/10 as he comes on down through the long left hander. Not been able to make anything stick as of yet. Just 0.4 seconds behind now. Does run slightly wide. That's going to gain a bit of time to Roberto, allowing him to have a bit of a breathing space of 1.2 seconds currently. Will allow Roberto to focus down more on his race and chase up Fabio, who's a good 4.3 seconds up in front. Corrado just 1.2 seconds now as the grid is slightly spacing out. Ivan 0.5 seconds out as Alessandro does come out of the pits, and it looks like, I think that was Marco Navarino, has gone sudden out, and he nearly come into contact with Valdemir Corrado, I think that was. Unfortunately running slightly wide and spinning out and having a collision with the wall. Looks like he has sustained a bit of front damage, unfortunately, which will hamper the rest of his race. Alessandro is sitting quite comfortably behind. Actually, I think that's Corrado, so he has got a lot of time. I think that's actually no, that's Ivan around the outside, following Corrado's line as Alessandro let him past and following him past around the outside. They are side by side, however. Not anymore. They were through the right hander. Lorenzo and Eduardo side by side coming in down through the tight right hander. Eduardo will have the inside, however is unable to get the run out, which will allow Lorenzo to have the lead down into this right hander. His point has gained 0.4 seconds, so will not have much. Will have a bit of breathing space into this right hander. Does run slightly deep, which allows Eduardo to catch up. It's just 0.1 seconds now. They are alongside through this right hander. Before this left hander, they're still side by side. Lorenzo will have the inside. Is slightly sideways on the entry, which allows Eduardo to get up in front, which will prevent Lorenzo having a move up into this left right hander. It's dropped off 0.5 seconds now as Daniele does come into the pits now. Corrado 0.6 seconds off Roberto. Still not gaining overly much time. Actually gained 0.3 seconds last lap, sorry. He's lapping very quickly. Roberto's tyres may be going slightly off now as we come on to lap 20, to 3/4 of the way through. Corrado 0.7 seconds still behind. Does go slightly wide there, off into the gravel. Unfortunately losing all the time he has just gained on Roberto. Roberto having a bit more breathing space now will look to chase down Fabio and if not finish off into P2. Got 0.4 seconds now. Alessandro having a a not so successful race, this one, down into P15, just 2 seconds off of P9, sorry, P14. Eduardo looking for a move. Looks like that is a lapped car just in front of him, and then you have Lorenzo in front of the lapped car. Lapped car moving nicely out of his way for him. Lorenzo up into driving his own race. Eduardo just 0.6 seconds behind, not losing too much time from the lapped car. Managing to stay out in front. And he's slowly closing the gap down to 0.5 seconds through the final 2 turns as they come on to their 29th lap. Eduardo 0.5 seconds. Most drivers are on the softs, apart from Alessandro and Marco, who are on the medium tyres. So your current standings on lap 29 stand as Fabio in P1, Roberto, Corrado and Waldemiro taking up P2, 3 and 4, Nicola Mura, Alessio and Tony P5, 6 and 7, Lorenzo and Eduardo catching very much under the brakes there, as he's just 0.6 seconds behind now of Lorenzo. Not going to be close enough to make a move. Lorenzo does lock up slightly, however, which has allowed Eduardo up 0.2 seconds now behind. Does look for a move up the inside, not going to be close enough to make any progress off of that move. Does look through the inside again, applying a lot of pressure to Lorenzo, hoping he will make a mistake. 0.3 seconds now as they come on to their 30th lap. Eduardo still sitting slightly behind, 0.3 seconds still as they come through the penultimate and the final corner. Won't be able to get anything done into the turn. Actually, he's gaining time on Lorenzo. It does look for a move up the inside. Will he be able to make it? They are equal on the brakes. Eduardo up the inside, not being able to get the run out. Lorenzo making great defensive move around the outside, allowing Eduardo to have the inside and hope that he doesn't get the move done mid-corner, which he doesn't. Great call there by Lorenzo, locking up slightly. Eduardo is quite good on the brakes there, does run slightly wide as Thierry is side by side with Antonio as they come on down towards this left-right hander of turn 2. They're still side by side. Thierry making the move stick, has plenty of space, gets the run out and manages to take up into P12. As we come on back on the fight between Eduardo and Lorenzo, 0.5 seconds separating them now as we're coming towards the final few stints of this race at Red Bull Ring, this 9-turn circuit. 0.6 seconds behind still, not being able to make anything stick as of yet. Fabio driving comfortably, good 6 seconds in front of Roberto, has led for the majority of the race, sorry. Roberto in P2, 4 seconds up on Corrado. Waldemiro 22 seconds behind them as well. As we hop on board with Fabio now. You see, very in control of the steering wheel, not having to fight the car at all. He comes nicely through the last couple of turns. We're back on board with Eduardo. Looks like Lorenzo is slightly, and they've had contact there. Contact between Eduardo and Lorenzo. Will Eduardo let him back pass? We will have to wait and see. But however, that has allowed Daniele to catch back up to Lorenzo. Just a second off now. He's gained a lot of time through that turn. He's just 0.3 seconds off now. Lorenzo's lost a lot of time through that turn. Daniele looking for a move up the inside through this left-hander. He will have the double left-hander if he manages to get it to stick, which he doesn't. He doesn't look for a move up the inside through this left-hander, through this fast left-right. However, may look for a move through the right-hander of the penultimate corner, which he does. He dives to the inside, not being close enough to make a move, starting to stick behind and look for a move through another corner. This is favoring very much in Eduardo's favour, as they are both battling behind him, enabling to gain much of a gap. Daniele just behind, 0.1 second, now popping out into the inside through turn 1, as they are side by side through turn 1, both locking up slightly, and Daniele goes slightly sideways as Lorenzo was locking up through turn 1 as well and went slightly wide. However, Daniele getting a slightly better run. Lorenzo will have the inside. No, he decides to go for the outside as Daniele decides for the defensive move. Lorenzo not being able to get the run, however, is still 0.3 seconds behind. Certainly not out of the picture as he looks for a move. He isn't able to get a move down into this right-hander as Daniele decides to take a slightly more defensive line. Loses quite a bit of time there, Lorenzo, locking up unfortunately through that right-hander. Fabio has lost a slight bit of time to Roberto, I think, but not much. Waldemir in P4, 30 seconds off from Corrado. Just 3/10 slower, however, last lap. As we come on back with the fight between Daniele and Lorenzo. Lorenzo dropping off a bit, 1.2 seconds now. Not being able to gain much time. As we have Marco, who's unfortunately had not a very good race this race, is 0.6 laps behind P17, unfortunately. However, we'll try and finish this race as we head on back to Daniele and Lorenzo. Lorenzo, 1.4 seconds now, has lost 2/10 to Daniele, who is sitting in P9. He has had a very good race this race, and it looks like Antonio has pitted for another set of tyres. Looks like he is coming into his box now. We will see what tyres he heads on to, probably softs for another 5 laps. Corrado still sitting comfortably in P3. 5-second gap to Roberto, and a 5-second gap from Roberto to Fabio. And it looks like Antonio has retired from the race, unfortunately. We are down to 17 races now, as it looks like Lorenzo has dropped off a lot from Danny, now 2 seconds. Maybe looking after the tyres for the final couple of laps, or looking just to finish this race in P10. Umberto managing to catch up to Thierry, 0.5 seconds now, as they head through this fast left-right section. Not being able to make anything of his time gain as of yet. We'll have a look though fairly soon to gain that P11 position, as he's now 0.2 seconds behind as they come through the final corner. Not being able to make anything of it yet. Has lost a bit of time now, 0.5 seconds behind. And it looks like, I think that's Eduardo. No, it may be his teammate behind them. Currently, Thierry is in front of Umberto. 0.5 seconds still separating them both as they come on down through the right-hander. And it looks like Daniele has gained a lot of time on Eduardo. I'm not sure whether he made a mistake, but it's now down from 2 seconds to 1 second. He must have made a mistake there, which has allowed Daniele to catch up. Just 0.7 seconds off now. He's going to look for a move for that P8 position. That will be his best finish. Unfortunately, not being able to finish last race due to a retirement after gaining a lot of damage. 0.6 seconds off. As it comes through the final turn, you can have a look at the lap times and see what happened with Eduardo. And now it looks like Daniele just done a very fast lap. That was a 1:30 flat. I think that's one of his best. And it looks like Eduardo has gone onto the AstroTurf on the outside and has spun out, and he's come on at a very weird angle, nearly taken out Lorenzo there. Unfortunately being punted down into P10, giving Daniele the place. Only has 4 seconds to gain onto Tony. It is possible to do in these dying laps. Alessio 1.3 seconds off Nicola Mira. Nicola Mira in P5 has done very well this race. Alessio just 1.2 seconds behind. Will look to close that gap over the next 4 laps. As Fabio is sitting nicely in P1, getting slightly out of shake. Roberto 5 seconds behind. And it looks like Corrado has managed to catch up quite a bit to Roberto, however is not able to be close enough, I doubt, to the end of the race. Alessio 0.7 seconds behind Nicola Mura now, not being able to make anything stick as Nicola Mura is driving his own race on the soft tyres. All drivers are on the soft tyres apart from Alessandro. Alessio just 0.5 seconds behind. Looks like Nicola Mira has locked up slightly, gone slightly wide. That has enabled Alessio to get up alongside, however does not get the run out. So he has lost a bit of time to Nicola Mira. Will not be able to make a move up the inside for the next turn. As they both break down hard for this right-hander. And it looks like Nicola Mira has run wide, which has allowed Alessio to come past. Nicola Mira unfortunately running a little too deep, trying to push the car, trying to stay out in front of Alessio, and has lost the place. However, is 0.6 seconds behind, so will not back out of his battle as of yet. Corrado just 2.2 seconds. He has gained a lot on Roberto. I think he made a mistake. He done a 1:33 last lap, unless if his tyres have gone off. But it's just 2.2 seconds now as we come on back on the battle between Nicola Mira and Alessio. Now up to 1 second. Not being able to make anything of it yet. Alessandro on the medium tyres coming through turn 1, just 1 second off Marco in P14. Nicola Mira 1.2 seconds off now. Maybe his tyres have gone slightly off more than Alessio's, so he won't be able to put in as fast lap times. As we come on back down towards Alessandro, 1.5 seconds as he's on the medium tyres. He is catching Marco, however, unless if he made a mistake last lap, as he done a 1:33 and Alessandro done a 1:31. So we'll have to see how the rest of this race will pan out over the next few laps. Looks like Corrado has caught up a lot to Roberto. Now 1.4 seconds. We will have to wait and see whether he can make a move as they come on to the 38th lap, or the 39th lap, sorry. As Corrado looking for a move up the inside. Sorry, looking to catch up to Roberto. Just 1.7 seconds off, not being able to gain a lot of time as of yet. Eduardo, 0.8 seconds, has managed to catch up back up to Lorenzo, as he's 0.7 seconds behind now. Not being able to catch up quite close enough to have a move. As Fabio is driving away, coming through the long left-hander. Corrado now only 1 second behind. Will have to catch up very quickly if he wants to get a move done. He did lap a whole second faster than Roberto last lap. As he comes through the left-hander, we'll have to wait and see whether he is able to gain much time. Still only a second behind. Eduardo, 0.4 seconds behind now, coming through turn 1. Not been able to make anything of his time as of yet. He comes down. He is in the slipstream of Lorenzo. We'll have a look towards this right-hander. Very good point for overtakes, as has been proven in this race. As the leader comes onto his last lap, Eduardo not being able to make a move. Will have the run out of the corner. Does run slightly over the curb, preventing him from making a move into left turn. However, he's only 0.3 seconds off now. May have a look into the next turn. Not being close enough to make a move. However, Lorenzo does lock up slightly, and has run slightly wide. That has allowed Eduardo to come up the inside as they come on down through this right-hander. As they come on down, Lorenzo on the inside. Eduardo managing to get past, and he's in this on the inside through the left-hander. Down into the second left-hander, and he manages to make the move stick as Eduardo is now into P9. Corrado, 1.2 seconds, not being able to get much time on Roberto, just 1 second behind. Fabio coming through the left-hander, only got 4 more turns to go. As he comes through the left and the right, not being able to, taking it nice and smooth, making sure he can finish the race. Corrado, 0.9 seconds behind. Will he be able to make a move through the final 2 turns? Fabio taking it nice and clean, looking to finish his final lap to take the race victory. He comes through the final turn nice and clean, and he manages to, and he takes the victory here at the Red Bull Ring. P1 for Fabio Diani. Corrado just behind may look for a move. It looks like Thierry has gained a position on Oh, it looks like Eduardo made a mistake actually, and has been knocked down to P11. Made a mistake through turn 1. So unfortunately he's not going to be able to gain much time. Daniele, 0.2 seconds behind Tony as they come through this left-hander. Daniele looking for a move up to the inside, not being able to find anything. Clips the cab, and he's very sideways, and he's had the snapback, not being able to catch it. He does have quite a big gap to Lorenzo. However, Lorenzo is catching up very quickly, up in P9, just 5 seconds behind now. Unfortunately, Daniele catching the apex there on that left-hander, not being able to make a move on the inside of Tony, and unfortunately spinning out. Lorenzo just 2 seconds, not going to be close enough to make a move as we come on down. Alessandro 0.5 seconds behind Marco as he comes through the tight right-hander. 0.8 seconds behind. Not being close enough to make a move as of yet, but there is still quite a few corners to go. Marco slightly locking up, not going too wide however. Alessandro does catch up, however, is 0.5 seconds behind. Isn't going 0.3 seconds behind, and is now very up the close. And that is your race results. And it was Fabio to win here at Red Bull Ring. What a great race between all of the drivers. Very close racing, very good racing. As you see, in 2 weeks' time, on the 29th of May, I think it is, on the 22nd of May, we'll be up in the Scottish Highlands for the Highland Circuit. We hope to see you there. From us in the commentary box, goodbye.